Okay, we'll go ahead and get started if that's okay with you, Stacy.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, which is Ask an Employer with the City of Champaign, which is part of our Get That Job webinar series here at the Champaign Public Library. My name is Jordan Neal, and I am the career librarian here at the library, so thank you all for joining us. So for the latest library news and updates, please visit our website, champaign.org, or you could follow us on social media if that's an option for you. You could email us at librarian@champaign.org, or you can chat with us just by visiting the homepage of our website. The library is open, but we are also still offering our curbside services. So again, visit our website or give us a call for more information. Moving on to a couple of Zoom features available to you that might help during this webinar. There are some buttons or icons at the bottom of your Zoom screen, depending on your device. On the far left, you have the options that control your sound or your speaker. Moving to the right and within the center of the window, includes a chat and raised hand option. You can use these options to ask us questions or share any comments. Our presenter will be happy to answer any questions at the end of the presentation. We invite you to type your question into the chat or raise your hand, and we can unmute you if you prefer to speak and ask your questions. I would also like to remind everyone that our webinars are recorded, so please be mindful when you ask those questions or share those comments. Finally, I would like to introduce our presenter, Stacy Rachel, who is an HR specialist with the City of Champaign. In her current position, Stacy's primary responsibilities include recruitment and staffing and overall workforce planning. We're so glad that she's joined us today. So with that, Stacy, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jordan, and welcome everyone. I'm very happy and excited to be able to take this time this afternoon and present to you regarding the City of Champaign. Hopefully be able to connect with some potential applicants and candidates and maybe even future employees to the City of Champaign. As we go through the presentation today, I do want to let you know that I will be switching back and forth from this PowerPoint presentation to the city's website. So there will be a little bit of that transfer going on of the screen. And so your patience is appreciated. And as Jordan said, we'll be happy to take questions at the end of the presentation and look forward to hearing what you have to say. I'd like to do first just a quick overview of the agenda of our presentation this afternoon. First, I want to do a brief overview of just our community, since I'm not quite sure who all is watching, since our reach is a little bit broader with the Zoom format today, as well as an overview of our city organization. And then I really want to do just a deep dive into our recruitment, selection, and hiring processes. That will include things like how to find out what positions are open within the city, how to interpret the different parts of our job posting to determine whether or not it's a position that you're interested in applying for, what our application process is like, the different steps involved in that, and the selection process. And then, as I mentioned, we'll have time for a Q&A at the end of the presentation. So for those of you who are not familiar with the City of Champaign or the Champaign-Urbana community, we are located in East Central Illinois at the intersections of Interstate 72, 74, and 57. So that makes us very conveniently located to a lot of different areas within the state and regionally, including Chicago, St. Louis, and Indianapolis. We are a very diverse community. The City of Champaign is approximately 88,000 residents. However, we do have our partner community of Urbana, as well as the University of Illinois. So between the three of us, we have a very large citizen, visitor, and community base people from all walks of life and all backgrounds, a lot of different cultural opportunities and events, a lot of parks and other recreational activities and amenities, and of course, many stellar library facilities, including our own City of Champaign library. We are home to the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, as well as Parkland College. We're also well known for being a hub for medical field, manufacturing, and also technology and innovation. This is an overview of our City of Champaign organization, just to give you a little bit of background about our organizational structure. We, as a city, are managed by an elected city council. So city council members are elected by the citizens of Champaign. So our citizens are represented through the council. The council then selects and hires a city manager. The city manager is the person in the city manager's office who's responsible for the day-to-day operation and activities of the various departments and staff within the city. So she directs and guides our work activities and helps the city staff implement the goals and vision that's set forth by the city council. As you can see, we have various departments located underneath the city manager in the org chart. In addition to the city manager's office, we have departments that are mostly outwardly focused in their function, such as the fire department and the police department. Also neighborhood services, which serves to promote healthy neighborhoods, affordable housing, things like that. Also our planning development department works to help develop the vision for economic and residential growth and health and wellness of our community. And our public works department also provides a lot of services directly to our community and our citizens through services such as snow removal, which I'm not sure about you, but that's very important to me in the winter months. Recycling, yard waste collection, maintaining our streets and sidewalks. Our engineering division is also housed there, and along with our traffic and lighting section, they're responsible for maintenance of city traffic and lighting, traffic signals, street signs, pavement markings, things like that. Public Works is also the department that houses our parking services for our community. We also have some departments within our organization that serve both external customers as well as support our other internal operations. So that includes departments such as the finance department. So they do certain things internally for the organization, such as paying our city bills and collecting revenues, but they also house a city clerk who helps issue permits for businesses and other activities that take place within our community. Then in human resources, where I'm located, we support the organization internally by helping with staffing issues and recruitment and filling vacancies, benefits administration. We also house the risk manager for the city. Externally, we help promote opportunities of employment within the organization and citizens who need to report a claim to the city. The legal department and the information technologies department, on the other hand, are mostly internally focused that support the operations of the organization. However, all of our departments and all of our staff have opportunities to interact with other departments as well with other agencies and organizations and employers throughout the community. So we are very broad and not at all siloed in how we function. We do a lot of collaborative and intergovernmental work through the course of our daily activities. You'll also see on this org chart to the left, there's a line that connects to the library, Board of Trustees, and the library. So the city operates in support of various library functions, and that's also true for MetCAD 911. As you'll see, we're connected to them. So we provide some internal support services, including payroll administration and benefits administration to those two entities. You also see off to the upper right, there's a link to boards and commissions. And these are opportunities for our citizens to also get involved in the governance of our organization and our community through volunteering through the various boards and commissions that we have within our organization. One of the things that I did want to highlight today during our presentation is what guides our activities within the city. So we have a city mission, which you can see here, which is to provide responsive, caring, and effective service in partnership with our community. And then we have values. These are city values that guide our work and help us in our daily decision-making, goal setting, and setting the vision for how we administer our functions. Those values are personal integrity, responsibility, respect, teamwork, and results. And as a city employee, I can attest to the fact that these are more than just words on a page or words on a screen. These are guiding principles that we refer back to on a daily basis. So if we have a question, if we have a project that we're working on, if there's a program that we are developing, we refer back to our mission and values to help guide us in developing and implementing those programs and services. So what does this mean for you as someone who's watching this webinar today? What this means is in our organization, we have a very wide range of positions available. In fact, within the city itself, those main departments that I highlighted in our organizational structure, we have approximately 420 employees with the city. If you add MetCAD to that, that increases the number of positions that we have to approximately 460. And then if you include the library, which does have its own recruitment, selection, and hiring process, so I won't touch on that in this presentation, but that comes to a total of just around 570 positions. So the positions that we offer run the whole gamut across all different disciplines, different backgrounds, different types of work that they entail. And so what I have for you on the screen today is a representative sample of some of the positions that we offer, but in no way is this considered to be a comprehensive list of all the positions that we do have. You can see some of the things we have under the professional and administrative category are things that might be familiar to a lot of you, such as an administrative assistant position. We have accountants. We have attorneys that work in our legal department. We have planners that work in the planning development department. We have customer service representatives that work in the public works department. We also have a category of position that's a little more technically focused or based. So these might require special certifications or specialized training in order to qualify for these positions. So these would be things like inspectors. And you'll see on the screen, we have a wide variety of inspector positions. We have building safety inspectors that are housed within the fire department, as well as electrical and plumbing inspectors. These are people that review building plans to make sure that they meet code requirements and that they're safe for people to work and live in. We have a finance technician and purchasing technicians. So these are people with finance backgrounds, and then engineering technicians, which is a separate classification than an actual engineer position with the city. Then we have service maintenance positions. So we have a wide range of maintenance workers, the majority of which are housed in our Public Works Department. So these are things, positions that do activities related to asphalt maintenance, concrete, landscape maintenance, people that work with our sewer, sanitary, and stormwater sewers, sign maintenance, streets. We have some positions that specialized in doing utility locating for construction projects, not only within the city, but organization, but for other contractors and other projects outside of the city's umbrella. We also have arborists who help maintain the city's tree inventory and health. As we do, believe it or not, we have over 2,000 city-owned trees throughout our community that have to be maintained. And then we have mechanics who help maintain and repair the fleet of vehicles that the city maintains. And this is everything from regular automobiles and small trucks, but also very specialized trucks, $1 million fire trucks that need to be maintained and serviceable to be able to respond to emergencies as needed, as well as a lot of public works specialized trucks for those types of activities that the maintenance workers are involved in. And this is a question that I get asked quite often when I talk to people about employment opportunities with the city, is what makes working for the City of Champaign special, or why should someone consider a career in public service? Well, I've talked to many people that work in the city. I have personally been working for the City of Champaign since 2004. I started off in the Public Works Department in the Parking Services Division before moving into the Human Resources Department. And so I've met and worked with a variety of people within the organization. And constantly when I talk to people, they express and relay just a genuine joy for the opportunity to give back to our community. We are a workforce and a group of people that are highly invested in the health and well-being and growth and opportunities available within our community. And we work tirelessly on behalf of the citizens and the residents, the people who work here, the people who come to visit here, to make this a great place to work, to visit, to take advantage of all that we have to offer. What's also great about working for the city, though, is that it's really unique and challenging work. And while there are private employers that do a lot of the same functions that we do, the opportunity that we have and the size of organization that we are to do that cross-departmental work that I've referred to earlier, to partner with different departments within our organization and work on really broad range programs and services is somewhat unique to municipal government and to our organization. For me personally, when I worked in the Public Works Department, I was on a committee that involved people from the planning department with the city, as well as the University of Illinois, the Mass Transit District here in Champaign and Urbana, and the city of Urbana. And we all collaborated and worked together to implement car sharing within our community. So some of you may be familiar with the zip cars that are available for people to reserve and use. And it's part of a sustainability project for our community. It's also to help promote alternative modes of transportation, helps decrease planning parking requirements if we have other modes of transportation available. And it was really exciting to work with this group of people and then see this project come to fruition. And years later, it's still going strong in our community. And then, as I mentioned, there's a lot of us here in the city that we appreciate that we are a values-driven organization, because these values align with our personal values as well, and help give us more purpose and meaning in our work. So that's theoretical. In a more practical sense, what does a career in public service look like? Well, it's a police officer who's patrolling the streets in an effort to keep our neighborhoods safe. It's a 911 dispatcher responding to an emergency call. And aren't we all grateful to know that there are police officers and 911 operators available when we need them? It's a maintenance worker who's adding a new traffic signal at an intersection that's becoming busier so that vehicles and bicyclists and pedestrians can all manage that intersection safely. It's a clerk who's walking a new business owner through the licensing and permit process so that they can fulfill a lifelong dream of owning their own business in our community. And this is what it looks like. It's our staff members interacting with, serving, being available to all of the people that live and work and come to visit our community. This is why we do what we do, and we are so honored to be able to have the opportunity to do this work for our community. So at this time, I've now reached the part of my presentation that I'd like to do that deep dive, as I mentioned, into, I think, what we're really all here to discuss a little bit more, which is our hiring and selection process for the city. So first, I wanted to just briefly mention the current openings that we have and that we are accepting applications for. We have openings for a police officer and telecommunicator 1. These are kind of not only specialized public safety positions, but this type of recruitment process is a little different than our standard one that I'm going to spend most of my time talking about today. Instead of doing a singular posting for these positions that has a specific and defined application period, we do continuous testing and application for these positions. These are very complex processes, hiring process to go through. They involve multiple steps and take a long time to complete. So an effort to be a little more responsive and open to being able to accept applications on an ongoing basis, we've adjusted our recruitment process for these positions. So instead of visiting the city's website to apply for these positions, you actually go to what's called National Testing Network. And that is a vendor that we contract and collaborate with on these processes. And so the application process is hosted and maintained through National Testing Network's website. For a position of police officer, we are currently accepting applications through June 17th, and we will continue to have application windows in the future. And then for that particular application process, after you make sure you apply by June 17th, then you actually have to complete a written exam for that position. So the exam deadline for that is July 16th. So you have until June 17th to apply. Then you have to schedule and take your exam. You have until July 16th for that. For telecommunicator 1, this is a position that's housed at METCAD 911 and is more commonly known as an emergency dispatcher or a 911 dispatcher position. This position, actually, we have no specific application period. Instead, we accept applications for this on an ongoing, continuous basis. And you can also test and complete the test for that position on an ongoing basis. So there's no deadline. We post in the job posting on National Testing Network when we are planning to pull test scores and applications. So you know in advance if you want to meet a specific pull score date, the time in which you have to submit your application and complete the testing process for that. But if you visit nationaltestingnetwork.com, you can see all the details and very comprehensive job postings for both of those positions. Excuse me. We do have on our jobs page on the city's website right now one current opening. This is for an experienced police officer. So the position that I previously referred to is for an entry-level police officer. So it's for someone who's brand new into the work of being a police officer. The experienced officer position that's on the city's website is for someone who has previous experience or is currently employed as a police officer at another law enforcement agency. And I will click over and switch over to our job site on our website just a second, but I also wanted to let you know one way that you can identify or learn about opportunities with the city as they become available is to complete and submit what we call a job interest card. This is available on our website. It's an online submission form. And through that process, you select the categories of positions that you are interested in, and then provide your name and contact information. And then for the next 12 months, when we post any job postings or job ads on our website in any of those categories that you've selected, you will actually receive an email notification letting you know that that job posting is now live and directs you to visit our website for additional details and then to apply if you want. So that makes the job search process a little more directed to you. So you don't have to keep checking back on our website to look for opportunities. Instead, they show up in your inbox, which I think is, as someone who has been through the job search process myself multiple times, I find it a lot easier if the jobs are coming to me than if I have to keep going out and looking for those opportunities. So before I switch over to our website, I just wanted to ask a quick poll question of our audience. And I was just wondering if anyone has applied for a position with the City of Champaign in the last 5 years. And there is that poll question right now on your screen. So if you want to go ahead and select yes or no, this is just to give me an idea of if anyone has any experience with our process so far, or if anyone in our audience today is brand new to our process. Let's see. So looks like right now we have our audience is comprised of people who have not applied so far. So I'm glad to see that you're interested in learning more about applying for positions with the city, and hopefully you find this presentation helpful. So right now I'm going to switch over on the screen, and here is our city's website. This is our homepage. So if you search City of Champaign, or if you go directly to our website, which is champaign.il.gov, this is our homepage. And there's a lot of information to explore here, and I won't take time to go through all of it. But there's a lot of information regardless of your interest. If you're interested in looking for employment or other purposes, a lot of information about our history and our community. This section here on our city departments, if you find a position that you are potentially considering applying for, you may want to go to the specific web page of that department to learn a little bit more about that department, and that might help you make a decision about whether or not you want to pursue that particular opportunity. There is a link here to the Human Resources Department section of the web page, and we provide some information here that talks about jobs with the city, and I encourage you to visit that. We have tried to outline this in a way that follows our process that we implement for each particular recruitment. But just to give you an idea, we have our job descriptions are available on our jobs page, and I'll get to that in just a second. Sorry about that. But there's some detailed information about how to apply for our positions, the application process, the process that we use to select candidates to go through, the different steps of the recruitment, and so on and so forth. And I'll go touch base on some of these a little bit more further along in our presentation. But you'll see at the top of our webpage, to the upper right-hand menu, there is a link to jobs. So we do try to make it fairly easy to see what jobs are currently available and for people to apply to those. So this is our jobs opportunity page of our website. And right here, if you click on the show more text, there's some valuable information. So I encourage you not to necessarily skip over that immediately. But here is the link to the job interest card that I just referred to. So if you don't find any positions today that you're particularly interested in applying for, please feel free to complete this card. You'll select the categories of positions that you might be interested in the future. You submit that, and as I said, if we have opportunities in those categories open up in the future, then we will send you an email about that. If you scroll down the page a little bit more, this is where we list the current job openings that we have with the city. As I mentioned, we have entry-level police officer. So if you click on that, it will go to a job posting that gives a little bit of detail about the position. And then it provides a link to that National Testing Network website that I referenced earlier. I won't go to that one though, because I'm focusing more on our city website today. But if you have any questions about the National Testing Network website, they have a customer support phone number and online inquiry submission form through the website. We can always contact me if you have questions about that website or those selection processes. Go to Experienced Police Officer. There You'll see basically very similar information as you saw for the entry-level police officer. But we have this apply button up here at the top of the page. And this is how you would go about starting an application to apply for that particular position. So if you don't already have an account to do this, you can create an account or you can sign in. And then that takes you to the online application form. I'm going to close out of that for just a moment though and review a couple of other options that are available in the menu. Here in the upper left-hand corner of the page, there's a link to job descriptions. So if you're not exactly sure what a position entails, you can read the job posting. If you'd like a little bit more information, say for account clerk 2, you can click on that, and that'll give you a little bit more detail about the position, its responsibilities, and the type of work that it does. This is not necessarily the full job description, but we hope that it gives people a better understanding or a better idea of what those positions entail. We also link back from here back to the Human Resources homepage that I just showed you, and then some of the other links on that page that we talked about. So there's a lot of information available on our website, as I mentioned, and I highly encourage you to take some time and just browse through it. There's information about salaries, there's information about benefits. So these are all things that we know are important to people as they're contemplating whether to apply for a position with us or not. Now, I'm going to switch back over to the presentation. And I wanted to share with you what a full job posting looks like for the majority of our positions. There's a lot of information that we incorporate into the job posting, again, with the intention of helping you make an informed decision of whether this is something you want to pursue. So let me go through this a little bit more in depth and break it down for you. The top of the job posting gives the title and the department where the position is housed, and then gives a summary of the responsibilities and the essential functions of the position. What we're trying to do here is give you a general idea of what the day-to-day activities of that position entails. So this is an example for an administrative assistant in the Human Resources Department. And it talks about, as you can see here, primary responsibilities. We try to make it very easy to read and follow. And it talks about the level of responsibilities. So it's varied, complex, and responsible secretarial and clerical tasks. So again, it's general, a snippet of our full job description, but to give you an idea of what that position entails. Then as you scroll down through the job posting, you'll see a section that is called required qualifications. These are what we consider the have-to-haves for someone who is coming into this position on the first day of work. So people who are considering applying for this position, these are the requirements of that position. And these cover areas such as education, but also experience related to that position, knowledge that aids in fulfilling the job duties. And these may cover hard skills, but also softer skills, such as communication skills and the ability to work in a team environment. So these are what we consider when we evaluate whether or not someone is minimally qualified for a particular position. The next part of the job posting is the preferred qualifications. And these are the nice to haves. So these are the things that someone coming into this position might not necessarily need to know or be able to do on day one, but eventually they will have to go through some professional development to learn these things in order to perform the full range of responsibilities of that position. These are things that might be used when we screen candidates, but may not come into play in the selection process. And I'll touch base on that and clarify that a little bit later in the presentation. Then as we move further down, we have some other details about the position, including any pre or post-offer requirements, such as testing requirements, screening requirements, things like a drug screening, criminal history record check, testing requirements, things like that. We put information about the salary here. That's typically very important for a lot of people to know as they're considering options. And then we also put the application deadline, which is very important because that is typically a hard deadline. Now, a couple of the current job openings that I referred to earlier have continuous application periods or continuous testing opportunities, but most of our positions do have a specific application period. So always keep that in mind when you're looking at the job description. And if you're going to apply for that, start the process early. You don't want to have something come up and prevent you from being able to submit your application by that deadline. And then at the very bottom of our posting, we provide our city mission and values. Again, this is just an illustration of how important these things are to us, that we include this information in our job posting. So our online application, I just walked you through that a minute ago. Go to our website and click on the jobs link in the upper right-hand corner of the page. And review the list of open positions that we have. The number of open positions that we have at any one time varies according to a variety of factors. We may have positions that are newly created positions and have just gone into effect, and we're posting and going through the recruitment process to fill that position for the very first time. We may also have positions that become vacant for a variety of reasons. People who retire after a career with the city, and so the position becomes vacant. Or people who separate for other reasons. They've resigned because they're pursuing another opportunity, changing career paths, or maybe moving out of the area. So at any given time, we may have one, or we may have 5 or more opportunities available. So it's something that fluctuates, and that's why I highly encourage that job interest card so that you can keep abreast of those updates as they become available. And then I did show you the apply button. As you click on each specific posting, there's an apply button so that you can apply for that particular position. I do want to make it known that we do not accept any paper applications. All of our applications are required to go through our online applicant system. If you do have any questions or problems navigating that online application, you can reach out to me or our vendor that helps us with that online form. Sending in a resume to the HR department, again, is not sufficient. So I can't reiterate it enough to please utilize our online application. If you want to, or if the position requires a resume or cover letter to be attached to the online application, there is a way to do that. So you can upload documents to that online application. So you can do like I said, resume, cover letter, references. Writing samples are sometimes required of positions. So the job posting will outline and specify if there are any documents that are required to be attached to the online application. If the posting does not state that, then it's not required. However, it is optional and you can certainly feel free to do that. This should look familiar. This is the screen to sign in or log in to create an account with governmentjobs.com, which is our online application portal to submit an application for a position with the city. I do want to let you know that for each different position that's available, you have to submit a different application. So you can't necessarily submit one application and have it be utilized for multiple different positions. The way that the governmentjobs.com account, you can store your previously submitted online applications, so then you can edit them and use them for different job postings as they become available. But you have to reapply for every different position. And then, as I mentioned, if you do experience any problems or need some technical assistance with creating an account or logging into your existing account or navigating the online application itself, you can contact our vendor, which is NeoGov. If you go to that jobs page that we looked at on the city's website, in that text at the top of the screen, there is a phone number for their customer service support, their candidate support. And you can also, in the upper right-hand corner of that page of our website, there's a link where it says support that will also give you the contact information for NeoGov candidate support. And the phone number I've also provided here on this the screen. So their service hours are Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Central Time. And they typically provide a response at least within 24 hours, if not sooner. Again, this is a reason why I encourage people to start the application process early when at all possible, just in case if you do experience some technical issues, you have time to get some assistance and resolve those and submit your application by the deadline. This page here, this information is a reiteration of what I just showed on our website. You go to the jobs page, and in the upper left-hand corner on that menu that I showed you, there's a lot of links to different information and guidance that will help you as you complete the application and go through this process. So I highly encourage you again to check out not just the jobs page, but other sections of the HR department webpage on the city's website. And here are some other application tips I just wanted to share with you today. As I mentioned, our applications are only accepted online, and they must be completed and submitted before the stated deadline in order to be considered for that position. Please make sure that the information that you include in your application is complete and it's accurate and it's up to date. And if you've been applying for positions for a while, or if you apply for a position with the city and then maybe a few months later you apply for a different position, I highly encourage you to just review that application and make sure it is up to date. It's really easy for things to change, and it's helpful that as we review your information on your application that it's as timely as possible. And then most of the applications that we have consist of a very standard part that is included in every application, every position that we post. So this is some basic demographic information about you: your name, your address. So how can we contact you? What type of position that you're seeking, your educational history and your work history, and then some other what we call agency-wide questions. So that's standard for all of our applications for our positions. Each application typically also has what are called supplemental questions that are related to that particular position and that particular recruitment for that position only. So these are a series of questions that help us review, evaluate, and analyze your application and your qualifications for the position. And you'll see I highlight that those supplemental questions are very important. And why are they very important? Well, the first part of the online application, which is the educational history and the work history, while it's in a semi-standardized format, everybody's going to present that information in a different way. It could be the order in which you provide that information. So some people will do a chronological order and start their education with high school and then move on to college. And then if you have any grad school or technical education that you want to include, or other people may go with the most recently attained and work their way back from there. And then with work history, there's a format and a template for including that in your application, but there's still some room for individualization in how you include that information. So what we do with the supplemental questions is this provides us with a way to get standard, consistent information from all of our applicants so that we can review qualifications across the board similarly from all of our applicants. So comparing apples to apples, if you will. And it just makes it a little bit more efficient for us rather than having to try to interpret what is presented in the other part of the application or make assumptions, which we don't like to do. We like to try to be as direct and transparent as possible. So we ask these very specific questions. So this is your opportunity then, as you answer these questions, to link your qualifications to the position. If you remember back in the job posting, we had the required qualification section and the preferred qualification section. So these are the things we're looking at when we are evaluating applications for each position. So these supplemental questions are your opportunity to link your qualifications to those requirements for us, rather than us having to make those links on our own, because you know your background better than we do. And it's that opportunity for you to paint the picture for us of why you are a good fit and why and how you're qualified for that position, and what experience and knowledge and skills and abilities that you have that will aid you in performing the functions of that position. So the more information, the more detail, the more specifics, the more examples that you can provide in your responses to those supplemental questions is helpful to us to have as much information from you as we can to evaluate your qualifications. So putting something like "see resume" as a response is not going to be very helpful to us. And it's also, there's a fine balance of selling yourself and promoting yourself and making those links for us, but also making sure that everything you say is very truthful and honest and not an exaggeration as well. So here's an example of a supplemental question from a civil engineer application that we did a few years ago. The question was, describe your experience supervising a work unit or team. And here's an example of a response that we received from an actual applicant. Managed a multidisciplinary project team, including structural engineers, electrical engineers, INC engineers, process energy engineers, outside subconsultants, contractors, etc. This gives us some valuable information without having to weed through all the detail in the work history component of the application. This lets us know right there some of the type of supervisory experience this candidate has, the types of teams that they've supervised. And this is helpful. Here's another example that is a little bit more in depth. I'm not going to go through and read this whole thing. And in fact, it'll go on to the next slide. I just want to show it to you comprehensively. But this response goes into a little bit more detail of the types of responsibilities that they did while supervising a work unit or team, such as work plan preparation, task assignment, scheduling coordination, performance monitoring, problem solving. So things like that gives even more helpful information and helps paint that picture of who this candidate is and what their qualifications are. And here's another example from an arborist posting that we had. And the question was, describe your experience pruning trees, especially as it relates to tree structure and health. So certainly something we would want to know from a candidate applying for the position of being an arborist. And this was one sample response. They're talking that they have work experience and they've taken some college courses and they've done work with young trees and given some specific examples. So again, this is helpful. On the other hand, here's a longer response that gives a little bit more detail, and it goes into, again, talking about the education, but how this candidate has applied that education into their prior work experience, and goes into depth, not about what they've done, but why they've done it, the reasoning behind it. And it goes on to the next slide. So it's pretty comprehensive. So again, I can't not reiterate enough the importance of these supplemental questions. They really do help us. And so anything you can do to provide examples in detail and numbers and things like that will really help as we evaluate your application. So exactly what is our process for reviewing the applications that we receive? Obviously, as we've discussed, we review the supplemental questions. But when we do this, I think it's important for you to know that we do this process blindly. So when our hiring managers receive these responses to these supplemental questions, all they have is an applicant ID number. They don't have a name. They have no idea where the person lives. They have no names of what schools they attended or where they worked, unless that information was included in the supplemental question responses, or other personally identifiable information. Really, we are looking at people's qualifications only. So sometimes people have a misperception that in order to get a job with a certain employer, it matters who you know. But I hope this helps allay those fears a little bit and provide some comfort that for the first review, for the first screening, we have no idea who you are, who any of the applicants are. We are looking purely at qualifications as they relate to what we identified in the job posting. And what we do as we're reviewing the supplemental question responses, we're looking to see who meets those required qualifications or who is minimally qualified, as I described earlier. And then if need be, and when it's necessary, we'll go back to each specific candidate's application to review that education history and work history in that to clarify or confirm the information that was provided in the supplemental responses. So it's all important, but we do it step by step in a very intentional way. And I do want to make it clear as well that our selection process, who we identify that we're going to move forward to the next step in the process, is based on the qualifications of each particular applicant pool. So if you apply for a position, say administrative assistant in the Human Resources Department, you may apply for it at one point and not be selected to advance to the next step. But then maybe a few years later, the position becomes open again and you apply for that position again. And this time you are selected to move forward. You might go, well, I wonder why that is. Why am I moving forward this time, but I wasn't selected last time? Well, it depends on how qualified the other candidates in that each particular applicant pool are and what we're looking for from the candidate at that particular time. Because in addition to the required qualifications, we're also looking for someone whose skill set fits in to and complements the skill set of the existing team that we have. So things will change a little bit over time. And so that's why I encourage people, if you're not selected, if you apply and you're not selected one time, to please keep us in mind for the future, because you may be a great fit in the future for that particular point in time. This slide goes through our selection process steps, and you'll see in the first column, in pre-offer, all of our positions go through some type of interview process. Sometimes we will have multiple interviews. So we might go first to a phone interview and then narrow down our pool of candidates to move forward then to final interviews. Or we might go just immediately to final interviews rather than having phone interviews as a step. Again, it just depends on the qualifications of each particular applicant pool. Up until COVID, our final interviews were conducted in person, but as with many people and employers, we've had to pivot and adjust due to the restrictions related to COVID. So we have been conducting the majority of our final interviews through an online remote interview process, typically through Zoom or some other online meeting tool. And then all positions, we also conduct reference checks. So we're going to do our due diligence. We are going to contact your former employers and your former supervisors. And we are going to ask questions about your work performance and your habits and your behaviors. So not only are we looking at your objective qualifications, that education, that experience, your technical skills and abilities, but we're looking at your soft skills. Are you able to be a team player? How do you communicate? Are you able to manage your time effectively and things like that? Also, pre-offer, some positions, but not all, require things such as testing. So for an administrative assistant position, we might require candidates to go through a series of skills tests that do related to abilities to do Word or Excel or Access, Office math, writing for office environments and things, or editing assessments and things of that nature. Some positions do require a background investigation, particularly those in public safety for our police and fire departments. In addition to a criminal history record check, they're also going to do a really deep dive into your background and confirm all your education. And if you're going to apply to be a police officer, they are going to go and talk to your neighbors. They will travel to do this. Trust me, it is important. And so they will complete due diligence where that's involved. And then for positions that require the person to drive a city vehicle, you're going to run a check of your driving record to make sure that it's acceptable and that you meet the requirements to be covered under the city's insurance to drive a city vehicle. Then, if for the person who's selected for a position, we are going to make an offer. First, we'll make a verbal offer. The hiring manager for that particular recruitment, and someone that you've probably been communicating with throughout the process, will contact you, have a phone call with you, and extend that verbal offer. And during that conversation, they will talk to you about the salary and confirm that, and then have a discussion with you about coming to an agreement about start date. We do understand, particularly if you're currently employed, you may need to give notice to a current employer, and we will provide you with that opportunity to give that advance notice out of respect for your current employer. And then we also have some internal potential start dates. So we'll have a discussion with you about that. Then that's, if you accept that offer, we follow that up with a written offer letter. And that's going to confirm the salary and start date that you've already talked about during the phone conversation. It's also going to discuss the requirements that you will need to fulfill on your first day of employment regarding employment eligibility, or what's called I-9 requirements. You have to show proof that you're eligible to work in the United States. And then we'll also include some information about benefits if the position you're applying for is benefits eligible. And then there are some steps that occur post-offer. So some offers are contingent upon certain things being done, and that would be a pre-employment test, such as a drug screen. Most of our positions do require that pre-employment drug screen, but you can't do that till after we extend the offer, but the offer is contingent upon you successfully passing that drug screen. And then again, specific positions may also have some other post-offer assessments or tests, such as that criminal history record check. Some positions require a psychological evaluation. That pertains to positions, police and fire and METCAD. And then some positions require medical history and record review, a physical strength test, or a hearing test. So why do we go through all of this? We understand our process is detailed, is complicated. It's a multi-step process. And why would we put you as a candidate and us as an employer through that? Because we all want to get to the end goal of filling this vacant position so that we have someone to do the work. Well, it's very important to us that we are very deliberate and intentional about our process, and that our process is open to everyone who's qualified and eligible for it. So that's why we do our postings and make externally and have our application periods. We want to make sure that it's fair and it's based on people's qualifications and not who you know. And we want to make sure that it's transparent and it's defensible and justifiable. We want to make sure that we do our due diligence and make sure that people that we hire don't put our current staff or community members at risk. And we also, it's extraordinarily important to us that we have a workforce that reflects our citizens in the community that we serve. As such, I didn't mention this earlier, but when the application deadline passes, the first thing we do is we review our applicant pool from a diversity perspective, and we look to see if we have achieved a certain level of diversity within that pool. If not, we will take extra steps, possibly reposting or doing other things to try to get a more diverse applicant pool. Because in order to have a diverse workforce, we need to have diverse applicants going into the selection process. And we also want to make sure that we communicate consistently with our applicants through the process. I've heard so many stories from people who say, I've applied for a position with an employer and I never heard back from them again. And we don't want to do that. I've been an applicant many times, and it's the worst feeling to just not know what's going on or where you stand in the process. So at each point, we will communicate with our candidates and let them know what's going on. Once the application period closes, we send an email and we say, we have received your application and we are reviewing it. Then we let you know if you are or are not selected to advance at each step of the process. So you will know where you stand and if you're selected. And these are the things that are important to us out of respect for you as a potential candidate and a potential employee with our organization. And that has been a lot of talking by me up until this point. And I want to thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And again, I want to give thanks to the library and Jordan specifically for inviting us to participate in this series. And at this point, I'd like to open it up for any questions or comments or feedback.
Thank you, Stacy. That was great. If you have any questions, you can, again, type them into the chat, or you could raise your hand and we could let you speak. I'm going to start screen sharing really fast here. And if you didn't catch Stacy's information there, you could reach out to me, of course, and I can connect you if you'd like. I do have a question for you, Stacy, that we receive a lot here at the library. I know you mentioned that sometimes positions for cover letters, sometimes it's optional to submit a cover letter, but a question that we receive a lot is, should I still submit the cover letter? So I just wanted to receive your thoughts on the cover letter, because I get that question at least once a week.
Well, that's a great question, and I do appreciate it. And I know that each employer is different on how they interpret these types of things. So I appreciate the question, so I can clarify that from our perspective. For those positions that the cover letter is required, yes, make sure you upload that. And in fact, we generally will include a supplemental question that says, did you remember to attach your cover letter and or resume or other supplemental documents? If it's not required, it's certainly acceptable to attach a cover letter. What that does is, in addition to the application information and the responses that you provide to the supplemental questions, again, gives us a better idea of who you are as a candidate, why you're interested in working for the city, and particularly why you're interested in that position. And gives us a better insight into your communication skills too. So we certainly welcome cover letters and resumes, even when they're not required.
Thank you so much. Okay, well, that was great. Once again, I'll relay your contact information if you want to get a hold of Stacy. Our next webinar will be Tuesday, May 25th at 7 p.m. and we'll be hosting, it'll be job searching in uncertain times. We will be hosting William Schreck of the Barrington Career Center. And he'll just outline how to conduct a successful job search, and then covers, I think topics will include setting up your workspace at home, developing a plan, just obtaining support, virtual networking, and more things like that. So we hope you'll join us for that. And then I have our June webinars listed here, starting with Transfer Your Skills. We'll be inviting back Kevin Martledge, who is a local career coach. And then you can see the other ones, Resume Reboot. We have Ask an Employer again. This time we'll be inviting Carl, not to diminish City of Champaign, because this was an excellent presentation. But yeah, we have a lot more webinars related to our business series, our technology series, our crafty adults, our writers workshop. So we hope you could visit champaign.org/events for more information. And once again, if you didn't catch Stacy's information or my information, you could email librarian@champaign.org. And they will get to us one way or another. It will arrive. It will get to me. So. All right. Well, that's all we have. Once again, Stacy, thank you for joining us. I don't see any further questions. So I think I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar, and I hope everyone enjoys their afternoon. So
Thank
take
you,
care.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.